Good afternoon, everyone, and it is a pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar on MSCA staff exchanges for institutions from Australia and New Zealand. We're delighted to see strong interest not only from across Australia and New Zealand, but also from participants joining us from 34 other countries worldwide. And this really reflects the global dimension of MSCA actions and the collaborative nature of staff exchanges. My name is Nishant Sandilya, and I'll be moderating today's session. And let me quickly introduce our distinct speakers for today. First of all, we are joined by Mr. Amir Spike, who is the project advisor at the European Research Executive Agency. Amir specializes in implementation of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions staff exchanges. And Amir, thank you a lot because you are joining us so early from Croatia. It's a pleasure having you with us. We're also very pleased to welcome Professor Anne-Laure Mention, Global Business Innovation Enabling Impact Platform Director at RMIT University. Anne-Laure is actively involved in several MSCA projects, and we'll hear from her some practical insights from an institutional perspective. And thank you very much for joining us as well. Now, before we begin, just a few brief housekeeping points. Please use the Q&A function and not the chat function to submit your questions during the presentation. We will address them during the dedicated Q&A session at the end after Amir and Anne-Laure has already presented. We will share the slides and recordings with all those who have registered. However, please note that the recording will not include the live Q&A discussion. So I strongly encourage you to stay until the end to benefit from the full exchange. Now, of course, as we always do, I try to put out a few poll questions to understand what is your understanding of the program. So let's begin with the first question. And I think this is something that you might find interesting in terms of participation of staff exchanges. I did a quick look. How many participations from Australia and New Zealand have taken place in MSCA staff exchanges under Horizon Europe specifically? Okay, so not Horizon 2020, just on Horizon Europe, how many participation have taken place from Australia and New Zealand? I see that a lot of you are already answering. The options were 18, 34, 41, and 51. I'll give you maybe 5 more seconds so that all of you are able to respond. 3, 2, 1. I'll end the poll right now, and I'll share the results on your screen. So a lot of you say 34, few of you also say 18, some of you say 41, and the least say 51. And interestingly, the answer is 51. So the number of participation in total from Australia and New Zealand is 51. Please note its participation. The signed grants were 41. The unique participation were slightly lower, but the participation was 51. This included 43 from Australia and 8 from New Zealand. So quite good numbers in that regard. Now, I still have one more question for you, and maybe this is something that will be interesting to you as well. Let me launch the poll. Okay, so on the budget itself, what is the total budget allocated to MSCA staff exchanges for 2026? If you are applying to this, I'm sure that you have already seen these basic stats. The first one is 45.92 million euros. Second is 72.92 million euros. 97.92 million euros or 150.92 million euros. You see there is a 0.92 because I just did not want the answer to be very clear, and that's why I put 92 there. It's good that a lot of you are answering. This is anonymous, so we'll not know if you are right or wrong. So just let us know what you think. Maybe I'll give you a few more seconds and then I'll close the poll. So 3, 2, 1. So I'll end the poll right now, and I'll share the results with you. It should be on your screen. So a significant number of you said 97.92 million. and the others have said other results, which for now, very interestingly, you are all correct. So it's 97.92 million euros. So well done on that. So you are on top of your game on this. I think this is enough for a warm-up for today. I think we are here to listen to Amir and Laura. So I think I'll pass on the presenter privilege to you, Amir. The floor is yours, and we look forward to hearing your insights.
Thank you, and I'm really impressed with the knowledge and the numbers, and this will make my task today much easier. So I'm really impressed. So welcome, and thank you for joining us today for this information session on Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, or MSCA Staff Exchanges Program. So we often talk about research being a global endeavor, and this specific program is what puts that into practice. So MSCA staff exchanges are designed to do one primary thing, and that's move brilliant minds across borders and sectors to turn great ideas into tangible innovations. So yeah, but I want to be completely upfront with you right out of the gate regarding how Australia and New Zealand fit into this picture. So in the eyes of the EU, for this specific program, you participate as associated partners, and more specifically, associated partner from a high-income country. What does that mean for you practically? Well, it means that EU will not be sending a direct grant to your university to pay for your stay or flights to Europe. Your outbound staff will need to be supported by your institutional funds, or whichever mechanism you have for supporting international cooperation. But here's exactly why you should be excited to be in this webinar today. So first, while you fund your outbound trips, the EU fully funds its researchers to come to you. So this program is a vehicle to bring fully funded world-class European talent directly into your labs and institutions. So it's a fantastic way to internationalize your teams at a fraction of the usual cost. And second, because you aren't drawing those direct EU funds, you get to bypass EU financial reporting and auditing. So a lot of people here in Europe think that this is something really scary. So you get involved into elite multi-million euro European and global research networks, which allow you to co-publish and share resources with very light administrative burden. So today we are going to walk through exactly how this mechanism works, how you can leverage your existing European contacts to join a consortium, and how to navigate the funding realities. So I still think it's a unique strategic opportunity, and I'm excited to show you how to make it work for your research. So let's dive in. I would propose the following content for today's presentation. So first, I would quickly frame the program of staff exchanges in its policy background, so you can understand the context under Horizon Europe framework program. But I already have a feeling that you have some knowledge about the program. And then this will be followed by a more detailed explanation of the program. And if there will be interest and still time, I can say a few words on evaluation and selection of projects. So let us begin with the policy background. So European Union or EU framework programs are the EU's primary financial instruments designed to fund collaborative research and innovation, typically operating on a 7-year multi-annual cycle. We are currently in the 9th framework program. It's called Horizon Europe, and it will run until end of 2027. So Horizon Europe is the European Union's key funding program for research and innovation. It addresses various topics like climate change. It helps achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals and boosts the EU competitiveness and growth. So total budget for the current Horizon Europe framework program is around 95 billion euros. So it's approximately around 160 billion Australian or 190 billion New Zealand dollars. And the next upcoming EU Research and Innovation Framework Program, we call it FP10, so Framework Program 10. It's scheduled to run from 28 until 2024. So there are still discussions ongoing on the overall budget, but it's certain it will be almost double what we had for Horizon Europe. So they're discussing numbers from 170 to almost 200 billion euros. So it's huge. And you can see in this slide that at its core, the program is built on 3 pillars. So pillar 1, the excellent science. It aims to increase the EU global scientific competitiveness. It supports frontier research projects driven by top researchers through several sub-programs, among which are today's topic, MSCA staff exchanges or MSCA Action in general. Then pillar 2, which is global challenges and European industrial competitiveness. It's maybe the most relevant for industry, but not exclusively. But yeah, it supports collaborative research and innovation, where both industry and academia can be involved. Pillar 3, Innovative Europe, brings together actors from across Europe to build the European innovation ecosystem and enhance interaction between academia and industry. So it supports commercialization of research results. What about Australia and New Zealand? Well, both Australia and New Zealand are actively strengthening their ties to Horizon Europe, though their current status differs significantly. So New Zealand associated to Pillar 2 in, if I'm correct, in mid-2023. So this allows its researchers to participate and lead consortium on equal funding terms as any EU member states. Australia, on the other hand, launched formal talks for Pillar 2, but it's quite recent and it still remains as a third country participant across the board. So crucially, Pillar 1, which includes the prestigious MSCA Actions and the European Research Council, is excluded for both countries from association agreements of both countries. So that means that for Pillar 1, both Australian and New Zealand institutions operate strictly under third country rules. So they must self-fund their outbound researchers, but they still gain the benefit of hosting EU-funded researchers and get equal access to, let's say, those elite global research networks. I will not say much about this slide, but just to show you that there are 5 main MSCAs, so doctoral networks, postdoctoral fellowships, so they both support careers of individual researchers. So for doctoral networks are focused on early stage researchers, postdoctoral fellows for more experienced researchers. Then we have our today's topic, staff exchanges, which promote collaboration between organizations and career development through research projects done by researchers' mobility, then co-fund and MSCAs and citizens. And this is a special year for us. We honor not only the legacy of Marie Skłodowska-Curie herself, but also transformative impact her namesake program has had on the world of research and innovation. So since its inception in 1996, the MSCA program has supported over 150,000 researchers, including 23 Nobel Prize winners. So we are very proud of those numbers. So as we celebrate 30th anniversary of MSCA, we do not only reflect on the influence of these actions on individual researchers, and I'm pretty sure that you will get more information on this individual influence in next presentation, but we also acknowledge the structuring impact on institutions and businesses in Europe and beyond. Finally, what is staff exchanges about? So in few words, I would define it as a collaborative research and innovation projects driven by the exchange of staff through so-called secondments. So the goal is to foster knowledge transfer between academic and non-academic sectors and across international borders. So, and again, what's the big win for Australia and New Zealand here? Well, it's a ready-made framework to plug directly into elite European and global research networks, co-publish and access state-of-the-art facilities. So it's a global networking opportunity, but in your particular case, it's not a standard cash grant. To elaborate more on added value from an angle of self-funded participation, there are still many intangible benefits like building collaborative networks, transferring knowledge, getting ideas converted into products. So I'm very convinced it is still a good investment. So this program should be understood as elite networking and talent acquisition tool than rather a traditional grant. So for some specific outcomes for staff members, so for people, secondees, people who participate in mobilities, well, one of the main outcomes is the increased set of research and transferable skills and competencies as well. So it will lead to improved employability, and it will increase career prospects within or outside academia. So I'm sure those are results of being involved in such kind of project. So, and also staff benefit from increased international exposure, which will lead to extended networks and opportunities. And also to mention a few outcomes for organizations. So MSCA staff exchanges offer innovative ways of cooperation and transfer of knowledge, between sectors and also disciplines, because this is built into our program. So you have to have different sectors. When I say sector, I mean academic and non-academic, and also it's multidisciplinary. So yeah, I clearly see benefit there. Yeah. Then this kind of collaboration will boost the research and innovation capacity, because you get access to highly qualified researchers and experts in the field. So this should lead to strengthened and broader international, interdisciplinary, and intersectoral collaborative networks. Let's see now who can participate in a staff exchanges project. So applications must be submitted by a consortium of at least 3 independent legal entities located in 3 different countries, of which 2 EU member states or Horizon Europe associated countries. The project is executed through secondments, staff exchanges, lasting from minimum 1 month to maximum 12 months per person. So, and also you can see on this slide that I'm referring to 2 types of entities. They can belong to either academic sector, so mainly universities and research organizations, and also non-academic sector, where we mainly refer to partners from industry, companies, including the small and medium-sized enterprises. But based on the nature of the proposal, we may also have museums, hospitals, etc. What concerns eligible staff in general, so secondments are open to any type of staff contributing to R&I activities. So definition of staff is according to national law and internal practices. But what I mean by that, so the organization should have the legal means in terms of control, supervision, and instructions over the secondee. But then, yeah, would you consider staff? We take your local practices as a rule. Let's say we don't have our own definition of staff. Researchers can be at any stage of their career, so including doctoral candidates, and also postdoctoral researchers, so experienced and early stage researchers. And I already told you that secondment period is from 1 to 12 months per staff member. And those secondments can be done, we call it under split stays. So that does not mean you have to travel for minimum 1 month in one go. So you collect during you collect periods during 4-year period of a project. So that means you can travel somewhere for 3 weeks. Then if you do 1 week later, this is minimum 1 month combined. Yeah. And also it is very important, and we have this, we call it built-in return mechanism, that after the period of secondment, seconded staff should return to their sending institution to maximize the impact of the exchange and ensure transfer of knowledge and long long-term collaboration. And this is a summary of secondments eligible for funding. You can see in Europe, we have a rule that exchanges are possible between different sectors. That means we always have academic and non-academic European partners. That's why we mentioned quite a lot those results which are something tangible, because you usually have a industry there. So this is within Europe, but outside of Europe, so cooperation with third country partners. So European counterparts get funding. We fund them through top-up allowance or unit cost based on the duration of a secondment. So they get funding, but the same rules apply for third countries from a low and middle income countries. But unfortunately or fortunately, Australia and New Zealand are not considered as a low or middle income third country. They qualify as a high income third country, but that means exchanges are possible, but unfortunately, EU does not fund your outbound secondment. So you have to find your own sources of funding if you want to come to Europe and spend some time there. Yeah, but I already told you that if you want to have benefit of having top European researchers at your own laboratories, then European counterparts can get funding for their stay. So what does the Staff Exchange Fund? So again, I repeat that unit costs apply only to organizations eligible for EU funding. So this is not available for Australia or New Zealand, as they are not associated to Horizon Europe Pillar 1. And we consider them as third countries with high income. But maybe you are just curious to see how the funding works on the European side. And I repeat again, this also applies for associated partners from a low and mid-income countries. So staff exchanges reimbursement is based on unit cost, and unit cost is triggered by secondments, and the total is 5,170 euro per person a month. So it's around 8,500 Australian or around 10,000 New Zealand dollars. To summarize, MSCA Staff Exchange Project is a research project done through secondments. It's bottom-up, so all fields of science are included and there are no predefined topics. Individual secondments can last from 1 month up to 12 months, and total duration of the project is maximum 4 years with maximum 360 secondment months EU funded. Yeah, so this is just referring to EU funded secondment months. So I think you now have a general impression of the MSCA staff exchanges. And now I will talk briefly on the next call for proposals. So we have a call ongoing and it will close on April 16. So there is still time to join, and most of you were correct. The budget for 2026 is around 98 million euros. So we repeat calls every year. Maybe few words how to find partners. Well, the easiest way into an MSCA staff exchange consortium is through European colleagues you already publish with or you know from conferences. So, but definitely next, Euraccess Australia and New Zealand is your best friend for navigating European funding and finding matchmaking events. So they can be very useful in helping you to find partners. And there is also EU portal with its partner search function for specific calls. But I would say your best chance is to reach out to your European co-authors today and say, or ask, are you putting together MSCA Staff Exchanges proposal? And we want to be your associated partner. So even if they did not intend to do so, I think there is still enough time to prepare something for the deadline in April. So it's a description of project is maximum 30 pages, and sometimes it's more problematic to fit all your thoughts in that limited number of pages. And there are, I would say, there is a lot of reference documents and guidelines, but there are few key documents that you should check before applying. So all those, and there are some official how-tos. How to prepare a good proposal. So you should definitely check that before submitting your proposal. And you can find all those information on the EU funding and tenders portal. So it's a central place with all the information about all the funding possibilities, and you also will find the reference documents and all the guidelines there. And you also submit proposals via that portal. I did not plan to give more details about the submission procedure and all the administrative data that you have to provide. But yeah, if there will be questions, I will be happy to provide some more information there. So I'm approaching now the end of my presentation. So just to finish in positive vibes with a few general messages and figures about this action. So first of all, staff exchanges offer the highest participation of non-EU countries in the MSCA. So according to our data, more than 50% of non-EU partners participating in the whole MSCA program are represented in our action. And we are also very proud that business partners in staff exchanges, including small and medium-sized enterprises, receive estimated 30% of the available funding. So, and also staff exchanges have tangible innovations, and there is a significant share of all the patents produced by MSCA, which is linked to our specific sub-program. So I still have a few slides on selection criterion, but I would address it only if someone would have specific interest to hear about such details, so to see what criterion and which steps we do to select the best project. So yeah, I hope my presentation was not too boring, but I'm pretty sure you will enjoy the next one. So a practical experience of your colleague will say much more on what you can gain by joining this action. So, but my message is you are very welcome. Yeah, and thank you very much for your attention. And here I will also share some links where you can find more information about the program. So thank you. I hope I did not spend too much time.
No, thank you very much, Amir. I think it was very clear on a lot of the aspects. And I see that there are questions that have been coming. Please keep on asking your questions so that we can take them afterwards. This is the time that you need to clarify and understand what exactly you are allowed, what is not allowed, what does association mean, what does essentiality mean, and everything. So keep your questions coming in. I think there was a perfect segue that Amir mentioned about getting to understand the practicalities, and who better than Professor Anne Laura mentions. He has been involved with the staff exchange in Horizon 2020, I am aware, and also with Horizon Europe. So I think we will now pass on to Anne, and the floor is yours to explain what is your experience of getting involved in these projects.
Thank you so much, Nishant, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here today to share about my experience, which is quite unique as academic lead and chief investigator of two staff exchange projects. And I'll explain in what way it is quite unique as we move on to the next slide, where I explain a bit more about my experience. So I'm based at RMIT University, which is a global university of technology, design, and enterprise, primarily based in Australia, in Melbourne, but also with significant campuses and presence in Vietnam, as well as a hub in Europe, RMIT Europe. So through the presence in Europe, we've been able to apply and coordinate staff exchange projects where I am the academic lead and chief investigator, and I'm supported by a team which is spread across Australia and Europe and is administratively coordinating those projects. So this slide gives you a bit more background about me and my areas of research and interest, in particular around technology and innovation management. And I'm also one of the board members of ISPIM, which is the International Society for Professional Innovation Management, which is the largest innovation management network globally. And that connects very much to the scope of the research that I'll be presenting across those two projects. So moving on, so as I mentioned, I've been very fortunate to be the academic lead of two staff exchange projects. The first one, which has concluded in 2024, started in 2019 and went through the pandemic. That was a bit of a challenge to get people moving at that specific point in time, which was Open in a Train. And I'll take a deep dive into that project straight afterwards. And a new project, which was recently launched end of last year in October 25, which is SMART. So Open in a Train received an EU contribution of 2.4 million euros and again as concluded, and SMART received an EU contribution of 1.8 million euros, of course conditional upon secondments being actually implemented, because as you would understand, if you apply for such funding, the funding is pre-allocated, but is actually only fully secured when people are moving within consortium. So moving on, I'll take a deep dive into the first project, Open in a Train, which was focused on research translation in the broader context of university industry collaboration and open innovation across 4 specific settings: fintech, cleantech, food tech, and Industry 4.0. We had a consortium of 22 partners, and you see the logos of all the organizations partner in that project, with a very wide and diverse set of partners. Of course, some universities, but also SMEs, some clusters. For example, Marinova is the largest cleantech cluster in the Nordics. Also incubators. UBTech is the incubator of the University of Porto. So you see that diversity. And we enabled with that project over 400 person months of secondments, distributed over 140 secondees. So all the images, all the pictures you see there is all the secondees who've been traveling around that consortium and undertaking in general at least 1 month of secondment, but in some instances much longer secondments. So if you look at the demographics, we had a very good balance of secondees in terms of gender, but also in terms of career. careers. So we had a lot of early career researchers, including PhD candidates, but also mid-career, more senior academics, as well as professional staff involved in research and innovation activities. And that's something that gets asked quite regularly, is whether professional staff can also be involved in programs like that, and what kind of benefits they can get from programs like that. And having hosted professional staff in the context of Open Train from that consortium, I can say there's also a lot of value in that, in terms of exchange of best practices and obviously contribution to building common understanding, also through collaboration between research offices, in addition to understanding what the scope of the projects, of course, are. I mentioned there are 18 publications as a direct result of secondments to and from our MIT University, and 90% of them in Q1 SciMago. This number is probably very much outdated now, because that keeps growing, and we'll keep recording publications up to 5 years after the end of the project. But this is just to exemplify the amount of concrete deliverable, concrete outputs that a project like that can generate. 61 publications in general and counting, and 18 involving our MIT University. So we had 74 secondments coming to our MIT University in Australia, but the remaining of the secondments were within Europe. So with that inter-sectoral logic, that if you're coming from a university, you're going to an industry partner, so typically a company or an SME or a non-for-profit organization, but at least not an academic partner. But when coming to Australia, you can be coming from a university to a university, because we are a third country. So we have enabled, of course, a lot of different other activities, and we've held a lot of events and knowledge sharing activities in the forms of events. So, of course, our own events, but also participation to events that are led by others. We've, for example, held sessions at ISPIM, that largest innovation management network that I was mentioning before, but also at more practitioner-oriented events, such as the World Circular Economy Forum. We had a site, what they call a satellite event next to the main conference, that was focused on regulatory sandboxes in the clean tech space, which was central to the core of this project. We've also developed a lot of training materials and created a repository that is openly accessible through our website, and have been having multiple downloads of that material, and delivered 5 summer schools, training over 150 early career researchers coming from 38 countries. So that's particularly rewarding, and showing the engagement at international level that such projects can represent. It has also given opportunities for high-profile events. You see in the background there, on the right side of the slide, myself interviewing the former president of Estonia, and in relation to this project as part of one of the summer schools we held at Caltech University. So obviously, there are also many synergies between projects, and I'll touch based on that. But what I would like to say is that in projects like this, something that is very important is to think of establishing the legacy after the lifetime of the project. And this is something we've done through the creation of a special interest group that is called Frontiers of Impact, that is hosted within the ISPIM community, and that keeps the momentum around the scientific knowledge developed in this project, but also around the use of the training material, and keep expanding it as we go. So, and that's again something that is absolutely freely accessible for anyone who wants to join and participate. We've also been extremely fortunate, together with the implementation team, to receive the ABDC Award for International Engagement and Excellence in Research internationally in 2023. Moving on, I'd like to share a bit of the experience with SMARTS, which is the newly launched project. So I can't yet tell you about achievements, but I can tell you about plans. So SMARTS is focusing on research on resilience, restoration, and regeneration, tackling in particular climate-related topics and challenges. So we have 4 focus: nutrition, housing, mobility, and energy in terms of context. And we've developed 24 innovate 3X, what we call I3X, which is igniting impact initiatives that aim to accelerate the understanding and scoping of a challenge, whether technical, market, or societal, and the emergence and development of potential solutions. So all in all, these I3X are there to guide secondments within the consortium and really give them a significant intent and purpose. So we have a powerhouse consortium of 35 partners, including 2 low and middle income country partners with the University of Bangkok and the University of Mauritius. And again, as you can see from the map on the right side, a distributed consortium across Europe with universities, but also research centers, companies, non-for-profits, so regional innovation agencies, clusters, so wide range of different stakeholders represented. We'll also be planning 3 summer schools, and the first one will be held in Porto in May. So moving on, I'd like, because I can't tell you much more about the results yet, but what I would like to reflect upon is the fact that projects like staff exchanges are absolutely instrumental to leverage connection, to really create and set up the foundations for further agreements, whether it is, for example, co-tutel agreement between universities, so leading to double degree programs or industrial PhD programs. They're also foundational in order to spot and identify talents. In some instances, secondees have now moved across the consortium, so moving in terms of employability to a different institution within the consortium, or have applied, for example, using a different instrument. Some of them have applied as Marie Skłodowska-Curie postdoctoral fellows to either come to RMIT or again to a different location within a consortium. And this visual is also representing what I have been doing here within RMIT, which is taking a strategic scaffolding approach to EU projects, building upon staff exchange, but also doctoral training, doctoral networks, and now co-fund. The Train Plus Plan program is a co-fund, which is again leveraging the synergies between existing partners, but also adding progressively new partners. So moving on, and you've heard that tapping into the funding as an Australian or New Zealand researcher is not exactly easy because the outbound mobility is not funded. But I think it's an amazing instrument. It offers a lot of opportunities to build structural collaboration mechanisms, whether it is double degree programs, industry involvement, industry collaborations in large-scale research programs, but also at individual, give global exposure and global experience to PhD students, researchers across all levels and of seniority, but also to professional staff. So in itself, it's an amazing instrument, but it also requires, once you don't have the EU funding to support the secondment, some institutional level support, meaning some funding provided by the university to actually support the mobility of outgoing academics to Europe. But again, you can very much host academics or professional staff involved in research and innovation activities from Europe here in Australia or New Zealand, which is a unique opportunity to create those connections, create those social bonds, and start developing research and innovation agendas together. So I think I'll stop there because I would love to be able to answer some questions at some stage. And if we don't have the opportunity tonight, I'd like certainly to invite you to connect. I put there also the LinkedIn QR code for the LinkedIn of both projects and myself, and I'd be really happy to engage with you either now or later. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne-Laure. I think it was excellent the way you laid out the facts about your involvement in Horizon 2020 and then Horizon Europe, of course. I'm sure that there were a lot of useful insight that people could derive from it. I think the first question that comes into mind, Amir, I think is for you. When somebody looks at Australia and New Zealand, when they're looking at Horizon Europe, especially Pillar 2, funding is not automatic if, for instance, for Australian institution, right? But we always say if you show essentiality to a project, it is possible that the evaluator might be able to see your essentiality. Does the same level of essentiality factor also come into staff exchange, or it does not?
Well, if we discuss funding, we in general the third countries with high income, which are not part of the program, are considered as third countries and have to provide their own funding. This is the case for Pillar 1 for sure, for New Zealand and Australia, but we also have a kind of exception. So for all the countries, if applicant can justify that this particular partner, it does not matter from which country, is essential for this project because it's very unique expertise or facilities, then they can request exceptional funding. If the exceptional funding gets approved, then you participate on equal rules as all the European or those who are automatically eligible for funding. Yeah, but this is then discussed during the evaluation. I did not address evaluation, but in our system we have 3 independent evaluators, not part of the agencies or commission staff. So professors like you, they decide if this is really essential or not, and they provide scores, and then based on the ranking list, we provide funding. Yeah. So it's possible, but it's very exceptional.
Perfect. Yes, thank you. I just wanted everyone to hear that exceptional side of it as well, because we generally, when we speak about even Pillar 2 for Horizon Europe in Australia, because Australia is not yet associated, there could be possibilities of exceptional funding. But you have to be very clear about what you are bringing to the project, as you very rightly said. I think there is a very interesting question on the fact that if, for instance, there is an Australian entity which is not asking an exceptional funding but is involved in the staff exchange, if they are going to receive a European staff, they will be funded by the project. However, does that mean that the Australian entity also has to send its personnel, or they can only receive?
Well, it's not necessary. So you can participate as a host only, but also I did not go into details. I showed you the unit cost. So if you notice, the unit cost has 2 components. So it's a staff or researcher part of the unit cost, but there's also institutional part of the unit cost. So institutional part, it's for some whatever cost institutions could have for running the projects, but this part we do not audit. We just say it needs to be used for the benefit of the project. So in case you organize some event in Australia or New Zealand, and you are co-organizers, then you could receive that part of funding to support for example, the organization of this event. But this is something that you should discuss with your European counterparts. But by default, we do not fund secondments, but they can still take part of the budget to support activities in New Zealand or Australia, or people coming from Australia or New Zealand to Europe.
Sure, thank you. You preempted my next question, because there was a question on whether the institutions could actually get the management cost side of it when they are hosting these. So thank you for clarifying on that. I think there is one question that is for Anne-Laure. Building such a consortium is quite challenging when you are looking at 35 partners or 22 partners, right? So where do someone who is trying to get involved with staff exchange begin? How can they find consortium partners? I think there was a slide from Amir, but maybe we also want to hear from you. Where do they start to find a consortium?
Yes, it is challenging. And I think Army's slide was very extensive in terms of the different options. And Nishan, I'm sure you're going to talk a bit about your access and all it offers in terms of opportunities. So I can only reflect on my own experience. And I primarily build consortium based on networks. So as an academic, of course, I work internationally a lot. As you could tell from my accent, I've got a European background. And I've been working in Europe for some time before moving to Australia. So I sort of keep and maintain those relationships. But I also quite like to have a balanced approach to consortium development, bringing existing partners, but also bringing and approaching new partners, because that's how you, in a way, keep expanding, but also keep nurturing new relationships that bring fresh ideas, and then also in cascade fresh industry connections. So, of course, tools, platforms are very useful, but there's nothing better than the human connection. So really also encourage anyone who is interested to attend conferences and really network with people interested in building such proposal.
Sure, thank you. I think that was really clear on that aspect. But I also suggest you to go back to Amir's slide, which was really clear. When you receive this slide, do have a look at it, because I think it really gives you also the way of connecting with other institutions through matchmaking platforms that he had mentioned. I think there is one question which I guess it's for you, Amir, on the time frame. So we are looking at 16 April as the deadline. So what sort of next steps comes after the deadline happens? When can they expect results? When can they expect the projects to begin?
Well, we launched the call in mid-December 25. Then the deadline for submission is mid-April, and all the evaluation steps and decision on our side are done within, I think, 3 or 4 months. So latest in July, you should get the results. And then we still need a month or two to finalize the grant agreements, but this is just administrative thing. But you should expect the results latest in July.
Perfect. And so in that case, there will be a grant agreement phase, I guess. So that would also account when you account for a project start date, right?
Well, you can freely select any start date within, let's say, 6 to 8 months. So I think for the next year, it can be up to February next year, the start date, but you will decide yourself. But if you are quick in providing all the information, signing all the documents, so it can be even finalized within 1 month. But this is not very, let's say, common. So usually it takes 2 to 3 months, and also consortiums need time to prepare, to make consortium agreements, partnership agreements, because it's a lot of details there, especially if there are some intellectual property involved. So they have to discuss the arrangements. So it takes some time, but not on our side, like granting side, but on the consortium side to discuss all the small details about the roles, responsibilities, dates. So it takes a month or 2 or 3. But in theory, after receiving the results, in 2 months, you can already start your projects.
Very clear. Thank you very much. I am aware of the timing, but we'll take 2 more questions. The one question, which is a characteristic MSCA question that we always get, is the intersectoral aspect of it. But as we understand from this year, I guess the intersectorality has been relaxed, Amir, isn't it?
Yes and no. So in last 2 calls we had for European counterparts, because it was always between different countries and different sectors. But we relaxed a bit, saying that you can have same sector secondments, maximum 1/3 of overall secondments. So that could allow academia to academia exchanges or business to business, but we don't have this limitation anymore. But it's built in the rules that there should be different sectors involved. So it's there's no limitation, same sector, but in theory you could have only academic partners before, but now it's not possible. So this limitation to be between different sectors was only for Europe. But if you had all academic partners, some from Europe, some from third countries, then this limitation was not applying. So you could, in theory, have a project with only academic partners, and now it's not possible. In Europe, you have to have both.
Very clear. Thank you. I wanted to just finish with two questions, but I want to add one more question. But I think this one is for Amir, and the last one is for Anne. The question for you, Amir, is with regards to the exceptionality. Is there a particular part of the application where exceptionality needs to be claimed, or is it accessed across the application as a whole? And would there be a reflection in the budget of the exceptional funding that the associated partner would like to apply for?
Well, you plan your project as any other beneficiary or any other partner. So at the stage of proposal, we don't make any differentiation between EU or third country partnership. So you list your costs, you list your duration of secondments, and then there is a part of a proposal where you have to justify if this cost is exceptional funding request. So if it's not justified, then we just consider that this part of budget will be your self investment. But otherwise, if it gets justified and approved as exceptional funding, then it will become part of the EU grant.
Perfect. Thank you, Amir. The last question is for Anne. And with your experience with getting so many MSCA projects, there was a very clear question. What makes you so successful with these? What are your tips and advice as to others who are trying to get into the frame of MSCA?
That's a very tricky question, and I'm not sure if there are specific ingredients for success, but I'd say definitely be passionate about what you're doing. In particular, with taking the academic lead role, this is quite a big endeavor. It's a large consortium to manage. It's a lot of things to go through. It's obviously bringing also the academic excellence, but it's clearly then also engaging with all those partners and orchestrating activities over 4 or 5 years. So certainly the passion.
Very well explained. And I think there are several questions, but I wanted to give you a disclaimer on some of the questions which were researcher-centric, because the staff exchange is where institutions come together as a consortium, apply, and then once that consortium is funded, this is where the staff gets exchanged, right? So please understand that this is not a researcher who is applying, but it's an institution of the researcher that applies to a MSCA staff exchange. I guess a lot of the questions would be also answered by this certain disclaimer. If you are still interested as a researcher or as a postdoc, we will run a postdoctoral fellowship webinar, most likely in April. Do keep an eye on that. But I think there were some excellent questions. If there are still questions that we were not able to answer within the allotted time frame, do not hesitate to send us an email, and we'll be more than happy to respond them in writing. I think we have already passed 3 minutes of our allotted time. With that, please join me in thanking Amir and Anne-Laure for their valuable insights and for taking the time to share their expertise with us today. And I'm confident that our audience has gained practical guidance and a clear understanding of how to position their institution for MSCA Staff Exchange. Now, we'll continue this series with a dedicated webinar on doctoral network in May, so please stay tuned for further details to come. And a very quick request, as you exit the webinar, a short survey with 2 questions will appear. These are anonymous surveys, so we really appreciate if you could take a moment to complete it. Your feedback is very helpful for us to shape future activities and better support institutions across Australia and New Zealand. Now, with that, this brings us to the end of today's session. And thank you again for joining us from different parts of the world. And thank you again, our speakers, and wishing you all a very productive week ahead. Thank you for joining.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Have a lovely day, lovely evening.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.